Well, good morning, my fellow sleep deprived and emotionally screwed up zombies out there. This is your zombie weaver, John C. From Rosamond, California. Back on here. No diary today. No triggers. No cries. No bawling of the head. No, politics again. How to put a person into a catatonic state. Like, oh my god, not that again. Yeah, I just came across a video about a few days old. A reaction, or almost an overreaction, concerning about a certain college. I think it was Houghton College out in New York. Theoretically, a Christian college. I said theoretically. I keep forgetting that when you're Christianity, you're so secular, you're so um, close-minded these days that being in those kind of campuses, apparently uh, you're stuck on ignorance and arrogance, and you think Christianity's everything. But you keep forgetting what Christianity is all about, because if you happen to kick out two people because of their names, or actually they're using the pronouns for the names, you're a Christian college? Oh my God. You're worse than Westboro Baptist Church. Yeah, you're talking about an insult right there. But this is an insult when you get rid of two employees. Now, I got questions about this one here. When did you guys turn into maggots? Seriously. Did you happen to follow Ron DeSantis and his lunacy, or Marjorie Taylor Greene, or even the Trumps? Probably the Trumps. And the Trumplicant thinking at that point? Or were you always that Christian conservative before the Trumplicant stuff ever kicked in? Because you're kicking out two employees for pronouns being used in an email or in a letter. My question is, were they recent hires? Or did they actually have tenure? Did they actually have years installed and invested in the college? Were they the office support, or were they actually working as instructors? And if that's the case, why get rid of them now? If you knew this was going to happen, why'd you hire them in the first place? If you're going to be that secular and that self-absorbed concerning about pronouns, don't call yourself a college. Call yourself something else. I don't know, but you ain't a college. No, I've been through colleges before, and we never insulted our students like this. But then, coming from California, which is a libtard state for the blues, we don't do that to people. But apparently, in the quasi-color of New York, they probably do. They call themselves Democratic. Well, how come there wasn't any outcry over this damn stuff? But they did put the videos out there regarding these two employees who probably have gender-neutral names. Reagan. Okay, well, what's wrong with the name of Reagan for a woman? What I don't get is if this one young lady, or this one woman, decided, very much so, to have her name used. I thought, right? I was just young Turks. I was just getting on there. But I was just trying to get information in the texts. Okay, so we're dealing with I hate using people's names in my reports, but what the hell. Reagan Saleha and Shua Wilmot. Shua is a male, Reagan's a female. They're not LGBT. They are just employees. And apparently they wanted to be supportive for their transgender fellows. So they decided to do the gender neutral pronouns regarding how they're being addressed. He could have called himself Mr. Wilmot, and she could have called herself Ms. Saleha, but they chose to use gender neutral pronouns. And they have according to an article that was written up from the New York Times, they're paraphrasing this in the Young Turks, as this is where the information I'm getting it from. I should put this in the description there once I get this thing sorted out, so you can figure out what was going on. They have unusual first names, so many people would know how to address them. Okay, if it's a she, and if you're going to be gender neutral, I'd still call her her. My personal thing. And as for Shua, who's also a male, I'd call him sir or Mr. Unless, of course, he wants them to be he, him, or something like that. Okay, fine. Want to call yourself a he and him? Okay, you want to be that way about it. And she, her, or her, she. I can understand. I'm trying to understand more and more about the cultural differences that we have over here and how we're trying to pronunciate and identify each other. For so long, we have been doing our own pronunciations of him and her because we see a she, because we see the long hair. But it could have been a short hair, and then we have to look at the anatomy to see whether or not we're actually looking at a him or her. Now, if it's a her, then we call her a he. Actually, we call her a she. We call her a her. We call her a Ms. Mrs. However they want the prefix or the pronoun to be. And as for him, he, him, sir, generations upon generations. When the community came out and it was trying to show itself to be such, there's differences because of biology, because how a mind, or actually something of the body, is different. And they were trying to celebrate those differences. Apparently, all the schooling that we've had back then is showing us to be, we have to change our ways. We have to change a lot of things, and we're not comfortable with it. We don't want to be, because this is not the proper way. And then again, it was never covered in the Bible regarding that situation, was it? And a long time ago, we were getting information from the Bible, from ancient texts, and then translation. We're not getting it from the direct source. Now, if we actually had a direct source here in life, we probably would ask the direct source and say, what about the rest of these people we got over here? I mean, you made man and woman, that's what you're saying in the Bible at this point over here, but now we got these other differences, and we're not quite sure what the hell's going on. This is a biological situation. Is Darwin having a field day? Is God doing experimentations? What's he doing? And if it is from God, then why are we killing each other over the damn thing? Literally. Take a gun and you demonstrate it on people because they're different. Because you can't stand it, you can't deal with it. Only because it's been that long ingrained, and all the anger and hatred or miscommunication and misunderstanding increased to the point where saying, screw it, they're different, we're the same. Again, I equate it to the us versus them situation over here. Ignorance, indifference, apathy, closed mindedness, lack of empathy, actually. We can't understand. And the old guard, like myself, have to work this out. I'm trying not to be one of these kind of people who are going to be saying, we got to do this against them. No, I say I have to work on myself at this point. I have to work on patience, love, and tolerance. A long time ago, I never knew what the LGBT community was. I had no clue. Didn't even understand what the hell it was. Yeah, I was raised under the Christian Bible. I was raised under the King James Version of it. The thing of it is, I didn't read the entire Bible growing up. I just read certain passages out there that kind of stuck out to me, and I kept them in my head. Kind of a moral compass of sorts. But I didn't get into a thumping situation where I'm going to be thumping on people saying, you have to be this way because this book says so. That's what we're doing these days. Ancient texts usually try to give us some kind of wisdom back then, but how to deal with today? There are certain elements that we can try seeing that are trying to be recycled or repeated left and right, and if we're not getting it, then we're not learning it. And if we happen to get it, are we getting it correctly? Are we actually getting this correctly? Are we actually accepting people as the way they should be accepted? I mean, if they kept pushing the Sermon on the Mount in church sermons all the time, would we still get it? I don't know. Because as far as I know, we're not getting it anything at all these days. Except a headache. A headache from people yelling and screaming at each other because this is not right, this is not right, this is not right, this is not right. We have to change it. I have to change it because this is not right to me. This is not right to me. This is never right to me. Why do I have to do this right now? Ooh, they're so different. They're so different. They're so different. Ooh, what the hell you? Ooh. This man, you can't be right side. You can't be right thinking like me. Apparently not. Getting back to the story. My mother had worked in different jobs, and she had to deal with different people left and right. And she also had attended 12-step programs for things that, we are suffering through. 12-step programs are unique in themselves, based on Dr. Bob and Bill W. And these two gentlemen took principles from different sources to try to create a program for people to live under regarding their addictions and their afflictions. Drugs and alcohol. It also expanded to overeating, gambling. Certain principles we learned. And in these halls, we also learned what differences are and how to accept them, how to have patient love and tolerance. If you want to call it Christian based, go ahead, because actually it was based off of Christian beliefs. But it wasn't pushing It wasn't pushing Christ down people's throats, but it was suggesting and offering, in order for this program to work, that you may have to accept some things that are beyond your comfort level, including having a power greater than yourself to restore you to whatever kind of level of sanity you actually were trying to look for in the first place. And how to accept people as individuals and not judge them as much because you don't know what the hell they're going through. There are a couple of friends in there who are the lesbian community. My mother worked with them, fell in love with them as friends. My brother and I were introduced, and I think I was grateful for being introduced to this way because I had a shocker prior to that. Because I had been exposed to the community, and it scared the living crap out of me. Apparently, when I was coming out of high school and going into college, I wasn't exposed to that kind of community just yet. My mother was making friends in the community for a couple of people anyway that we knew of. I didn't know them until after the incident I had with these two ladies. And it scared me to a point where I kind of changed their lives by telling an affiliation club that they were in about the situation. And then I created issues with that one. Ignorance, miscommunications, misunderstanding, lack of an open mind during that time. A lot of fear. A lot of fear in that situation. Like way after that incident, that's when we met the two young ladies, Jackie Dragon. And we called her, well, she was Christy Wallace, but we called her Crispy Critter. And these two young ladies at the time were madly in love with each other. And Dave and I kind of adopted them as our sisters at the time. Throughout the years, we lost track of them, and they kind of split their ways from each other, lived their own lives. I don't know what happened after that, but I'm praying that they're all right. I'm hoping they're okay. They made an impact on me. They didn't have to show that they were lesbians by trying to molest each other. They were showing themselves to be just two individual young ladies living with each other, enjoying each other's company, and trying to be respectful of others' boundaries. That's the thing I have to keep. That's the thing I have to keep remembering is boundaries. Brings me to these two people that got terminated. One of them actually produced a letter being terminated from this college because of the pronouns. But they weren't of the LGBT community. They were just regular folks, man and woman. If the college had an issue regarding this pronoun situation, they should have just addressed it with them. If they were ongoing or long term, they should have been more lenient. But when you're closed minded, ignorant as hell, and just stuck on your own stupidity, I'm saying it anyway, then I guess you're going to be hurting people left and right who are just trying to live and let live. You want things ruled your way because You're fearing it too much. I kept saying we got ego problems, we got fear problems left and right. They fear what they don't understand. Sometimes the universe throws us curveballs left and right that we're not aware of or we're not willing to deal with because it's outside our comfort level and we still have to deal with it. When two people want to change their pronouns just to support a community over here and they get blackballed by a Christian college, then I say that the Christian college is no longer a church, no longer affiliated with Christ at all. They're just maggots. I'm, I'm not going to be sorry about this one here. Deep in my gut, deep in my soul, Christ was supposed to be open and accepting to all. Everybody was supposed to be welcomed. But if we have this limited welcome because we're doing this fear mongering stuff, Christ cannot be involved in this situation. He kept trying to preach to the masses and trying to preach to people what patience, love, and tolerance is supposed to be. That's what God had intended for his kids. He never liked the other stuff happening, unfortunately, and he had to take actions on it, and I imagine he was feeling quite lousy about it. And in order to understand his children better, why not send Christ down to really understand? And through him, I think God had a better understanding of his creations. But I know, you're trying to think, but God's supposed to be perfect. Well, we don't know the level of perfection. We think we do. We think we have an understanding. There are some things in the universe that go beyond and transcend beyond what human comprehension is all about. We have no clue. We have only what our limited knowledge and our limited understanding is. And even based on that, are we willing to grow along things? Or are we going to be stuck on stupid? So apparently the conservatives want us to be stuck on stupid and not open-minded. If we're supposed to be so hooked up on Christ, and how come Christ is so much an anathema to themselves? They cannot be what Christ intended if they're going to be that subjugated to a lot of hate, fear mongering, ego control, and just being the most indespicable people that God still probably has questions why he still let live. Maybe for an example for the rest of us. Maybe. There has to be examples for the rest of us not to be. And we have to keep looking in the mirror to understand where the hell we're coming from. Now, yeah, I usually, when I talk about my own self, I'm trying to talk about it in personal aspects and observations all the time. I'm not a guru, not an expert in anything. 57 years from the date of this video here, you think I'd learn a little bit of thing or two concerning about human compassion, and yet I am tested also on that situation. I'm not skull thumping on anybody at this point over here. I'm not trying to make people worship or do anything. I am just telling my story, my experience, my strengths, if I have any, and if there's any hope. I'm trying to share what's going on. I've had my fair share. That's why I got familiar with the AA halls. My brother, I had seen him go through hell in a handbasket. Helped walk him through this shit. Ma, well, hers is a different story altogether. She kind of dropped out on overeaters. And she had to work and she had to be, and she tried to keep contact in the program. A few people here and there. Not as much these days. And she struggled. She struggled. There are a lot of good people that we met in the program that made a mark in our lives. They're different. I didn't ask if they were Christian or not because I didn't care at the point. These days, it seems like we have to worry of whether or not you're going to be Christian or not. And if you are Christian, are you going to be the Christian nationalist who claims that Christ loves guns and loves the Second Amendment? But in my own personal experience, if Christ was seeing us right now, I don't think he'd be able to tolerate humanity right now, even though he would see this. He'd seen the worst in his own time with the Roman Empire. See, the Roman Empire didn't want you to worship Christianity or actually be Jewish, but they tolerated it. They still wanted you guys to be happy in Judaism, so your temples would continue and the Pharisees would continue to spout stuff. But all in all, you belonged to the Roman Empire, and you had to be that way. Caesar was your god. Well, somewhat anyway. I guess somewhere in there that Christ even understood that when he was being taught about the Roman Empire coming in and taking over things left and right. And how people had to worship Caesar, but also God. People would probably have a question over that a lot. Roman Empire comes in with the sword. But God comes in with his words and his commandments and history. And we human beings keep failing at learning our own personal history. How to be patient, love, and tolerance with everybody, if we can. He kept trying to tell us, even in the church, even in the Sermon on the Mount. Now you can read about it in Matthew on that one. Matthew 5, I think. And he would teach you. So how can this not be applied to a couple of employees who are just sharing their differences of opinion or salutations? Is that so damn wrong? Change a couple of pronouns and automatically they're the Antichrist? They're against God? Oh boy. It's a hell of a life we've got right now as it is. I don't think we're not going to get out of this one. I don't know how the hell our country is going to survive the next 20 or 30 years, if it will. And it would forever sadden me if we actually dissolved our country because we couldn't find any resolutions within ourselves or with each other.